welcome to the Filmcast review of Matthew Vaughn's newest film, Argylle, which is in theaters right now. I'm going to read the plot summary from the internet. Reclusive author Ellie Conway writes best-selling espionage novels about a secret agent named Argylle who's on a mission to unravel a global spy syndicate. However, when the plots of her book start to mirror the covert actions of a real-life spy organization, the line between fiction and reality begin to blur. End quote. Devindra Hardawar, I think you and I have always had an affinity for Mr. Matthew Vaughn.
Sure.
Me too. Me
Even
too.
though he was a jerk to me at Comic-Con, yes, I have an affinity for it.
And Jeff, I was gonna
Yeah.
start with Devindra. I wasn't saying Jeff doesn't, but yeah, I
You
mean,
could have said the three of us.
The three of us, sure.
that's fair. That's
It
fair.
did seem like you were excluding me from the Vaughn fun. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I don't know. I'm gonna say for me personally,
Mhm.
the Vaughn method has had diminishing returns as time has gone on.
It's gotten worse and worse.
I think,
put it that way.
Kingsman was fun, and First Class was a great X-Men movie, and then there was Kingsman 2, and then The Kingsman, and then now
There's two more of those movies coming, guys.
There's more, and also
yeah.
I think Kingsman was the point. Like, I mean, listen, from Layer Cake to Kick-Ass to a lot, like we've seen the trend. Stardust is great. I love
Stardust is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
So definitely somebody who has had some really great hits and movies that we really enjoy and appreciate. And yeah, there would be no Daniel Craig James Bond probably without Layer Cake. So he did like shape pop culture in
he
various
did.
ways.
I mean, yeah.
He produced Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
He was most famously Guy Ritchie's producer before.
Kicked off Guy Ritchie's career. So like he's done some things that are really valuable and interesting for pop culture, but as time has gone on, I feel like the affection for him has waned. Meanwhile, in comes this movie Argylle, an Apple original movie made for what I understand is around $200 million.
Amazing.
That is trying to reinvigorate the spy genre. It even stars one of our favorite spies from Mission Impossible Fallout, Henry Cavill. So the question is, Devindra Hardawar, is this movie a return to form for Matthew Vaughn, or does the Matthew Vaughn method continue to yield diminishing results? What do you think?
I think this is another step in the precipitous fall of Matthew Vaughn. I think he has reached the point where nobody can tell him no anymore. And that is a dangerous thing for any artist. And I think we first started to see signs of this in it was Kingsman 2. The whole Elton John thing, Elton John doing a flying sidekick. I remember being in the theater and being like, oh, okay. I know we're not trying to use the word cartoonish in a bad way, but it just seems like more and more of his sensibilities are just like, hey, wouldn't that be hilarious? This is so funny. And I think he's doing a lot of things that are funny to him and that maybe tickle him in certain ways. And this movie is such an example of all his bad impulses, I guess. Like it is, hey, it has so many things I like. I like Henry Cavill. I like a lot of the cast. A lot of people pop up that we really like in this movie. I even like playing like with the sort of like meta story of a spy film and everything. The entire first scene of this movie, which we see a lot of in the trailer, is cliched for a reason because it is like hitting all those spy movie tropes. And they even say, we're not very different, you and I. Like I love all those things, but he fails to like make it feel grounded or interesting. So it's really the action. Like this movie opens up with like a very over the top whole action sequence and chase sequence and fight and everything. And you buy it because, okay, it's being framed as like, this is the story. This is like a very cliched spy story. That's what we're watching. The actual movie ends up being kind of just that is the thing.
Right.
And I think I just hate the way he shoots action now. And I think that we will remember when we reviewed Kingsman. I think everybody went crazy for the Colin Firth church scene. Oh my God, Colin Firth kicking ass, right? Never seen that before. And I never bought that scene. Because it always felt like it felt abrupt. It didn't feel like real. It didn't feel like anybody was actually like actual humans were doing a lot of the movement. And we've seen a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. Like Matthew Vaughn does a lot of like trickery for his choreography to make actors who aren't like fully prepared, who haven't trained 6 months for a movie like this, as you may see in like a John Wick, to kind of make it seem like they are. And after a point, it just feels like you're just playing with action figures. It doesn't feel real or exciting or grounded. It doesn't feel like the action is telling me anything. And this movie is just ultimately filled with that. The sort of action that makes my eyes roll because it feels weightless. I don't know the space you're in. Like to me, it's just like showy, but not actually demonstrating or conveying anything to the audience. So hate the action. I think the story of this movie is very, very dumb. It's filled with twists and turns. This is a movie that gets dumber the more it goes along, too. So, which is a damn shame. I want to like his movies. Like, as we were saying, I think all his early stuff, Layer Cake, Stardust, Kick-Ass. I remember the whole Comic-Con buzz around Kick-Ass. Like, that was one of the first things we covered when I was doing Comic-Con with Slash Film, and I met him in person. He was kind of a jerk to me, but I still liked his movies. It just feels like we have fallen far from that era where he was really trying to prove himself, and now he feels like he is proven, and nobody can say, "This looks really stupid. Please don't do this," or "The character motivation doesn't make any sense here," or "The story doesn't make any sense." So this, unfortunately, yeah, is not a very successful spy movie. It's a damn shame. And it's actually doubly disappointing because I have come off the high of burning through all eight episodes of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is so fun and so energetic and does so many fresh things with spy tropes. To see this, it just feels sad and disappointing from somebody I know who can do better.
I want to talk a little bit about the opening scene.
Mhm.
Oh,
if
so
that's
do
okay.
I.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, Jeff, will this step on anything you had planned, or
Yes, but it's okay. if
No,
you
no,
wanna
you
do
go.
it,
Then
can
you
do
go first, Jeff. You go first. So let's go. So Jeff Kanata, tell us about your thoughts on Argylle.
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on Argylle are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
All right, let's hear it, Jeff Kanata.
I like Matthew Vaughn films a lot. And wow, what a great cast they got. How much fun this could be as a pure comedy. Instead, it's destroyed by its plot.
Nicely done, Jeff.
I specifically want to talk about the first
Yes.
two scenes of this
Yes.
we got to
Yeah.
talk about
movie,
so we are going to
be spoiling.
Yes.
We're going to be
Yep.
like there are spoilers later that we will not talk about.
Yep.
And honestly, to really talk about this movie, you have to talk about the spoilers. So we will get into that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to spoil the first two scenes.
Yes. Yep.
Because
Let's do it.
this movie's tone is all over the place. And
Yep.
what it does is it starts with, as Devindra referenced, a over-the-top, wacky, stylized, tongue-in-cheek, winking at the audience, goofy spy movie. We're a parody of a spy movie. And then we pull out and we see, oh, Bryce Dallas Howard is sitting in front of an audience of people reading out loud from a book. What does that communicate to the audience? That communicates to the audience that that's not how the real world works. We have established that now we are in a grounded world that is different from this over-the-top stylized world. And yet, in that scene, we have a couple of people who stand up in the audience to ask questions. And the questions are, wow, as an author, you have gotten to the truth of spying. You're the spy
You're the
author.
new John Le Carré.
Yeah,
Yes, you're the spy author that real
Good God.
spies read. And immediately, as an audience member, you go,
Huh.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah.
track.
Uh,
Now I'm
Yes.
I don't kind of understand
Right.
what this movie is doing. Okay, but now we have her going home and talking to her mom and talking to her cat and trying to figure out the end of her novel. All very normal, grounded human things in this world that has been established is very different from the over-the-top stylized spy world until it isn't. And then, again, tiny spoiler, I apologize, but this isn't really
It's in the
spoiling
trailer.
anything.
Like, people know the
But
pitch. Yeah.
Then we
Yeah.
have Sam Rockwell, who shows up, who is taking the place of what's his name?
Henry
Superman.
Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
Cavill.
The real Argylle.
And she
Yes.
is thinking, oh my gosh, is there a real life version of my over-the-top crazy character who has been cast by this movie to look like the grounded, real, not crazy superhuman, a real dude? And so we are further being taught by the vocabulary of this movie to expect that there is a difference between the false, over-the-top parody world and the grounded Sam Rockwell is a real spy world. Until that starts to behave in goofy, dumb ways. This movie is part Austin Powers
Mhm.
and part James Bond, and part, Daniel Craig James Bond, right? In my
It
opinion,
feels like between Austin Powers and Kingsman. I don't feel like it ever goes to the
well,
Bond level, to be
I think
honest. Or maybe
yes,
like
that's
Octopussy Bond, like
yeah,
that
maybe.
level of like
So,
Bond. Yeah.
but there is like a taking itself seriously
Right.
angle to it. My personal preference is I wish it just stayed Austin Powers.
Mhm.
Just the entire first act of establishing her as the author and the world, it fails miserably, and it completely undermines the entire rest of the movie. I mean, we'll get to spoilers, and I want to explain even
Mhm.
more what I mean by that, but it is so unnecessary, so stupid. The premise of this movie is fundamentally dumb. I want to say what the premise is. If you don't want to hear the premise of this movie, well, maybe I'll wait for spoilers.
Yeah,
I'll
let's wait for spoilers.
but
Let's wait for spoilers.
I want to speak to that specifically.
The whole Sam
The-
Rockwell thing, like that is all in the trailer. So that is what people are going in to expect, right? Two
Well,
different
I'll wait
worlds
for
of
spoilers
spies.
to say specifically what I mean here, but it destroys what could have been. Like by the end, I think the cartoonish, in a good way, the sort of Looney Tunes, wacky,
Mhm.
over the top fun that we're having, I was like, this is actually joyful. I actually really like when this movie just forgets reality altogether and goes for it. But like, just be that movie the whole time. Don't tell me that that's this fictional world and then make it encroach on the real world. I think somewhere along the line, Vaughn and his team thought, man, wouldn't it be funny if the real world turns out to be as weird as the fictional
Right.
world? But
Right.
what you're communicating to the audience is that that's not the case. And subverting that later on only makes us go, what? This doesn't, because our expectation is to be in a different grounded reality. And there's no signposting of it. It just starts being silly, and the silliness comes across as dumb, as like, this is just stupid. Instead of, oh, it could have been Austin Powers from the whole beginning, from the word go, and now we're in a comedy, we're having fun the whole time. That's clearly the movie they wanted to make, and the twists that get us there are so not worth it. So not worth it. I don't want to talk specifically about that later, but go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Jeff. The tones are a mess, and I felt the story was starting to go out of control in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
When
Yes.
it's that moment you mentioned at the book reading, the audience member stands up and says, "Your work has been compared to the work of John le Carré." I'm like, what?
Wow. People are dressed up as Argylle, which, by the way, Argylle looks hideous. Like, just so many choices, like the hair, the suit, just so many choices were made in this movie. I'm like, what have you done to Henry Cavill? This is Superman. You make him look like a dork. I cannot buy this.
Yeah, that was rough. But yeah, it would be like watching, I don't know, what's a good example, like reading Harry Potter and saying like,
sure,
this is an excellent examination of what a true to life examination,
like it's like looking at 24, right, and talking to the producer of 24 and being like, oh, this is like actually a pretty realistic interpretation of counterterrorism, right?
Thank you. That's much better than Harry Potter, which is based off of fantasy. But yeah, it's like 24. Oh yeah, this is realistic. Or ER. I guess ER is kind of
ER
realistic,
tries
but it's
to be.
It's not as intense, Anyway,
I mean, it's even more than that. It's
it's just like
it's
a
like
goofy
saying,
one. Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber is a grounded relationship drama.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Or the Beekeeper is a really great examination of
beekeeping.
That's right.
Of the honey market.
Your work has been cited as one of the greatest, most true to life works on the art of beekeeping. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, and so the fact that there is no difference in tones is bad. I am sure lots of visual artists worked really hard on this film and worked for a long time, but The problem with this movie, I think, is in a lot of how it looks. It looks weightless. It looks like it was shot on the volume. It doesn't look like uh, anyone is actually doing the things that they're doing in the movie. It looks
Yes.
like
Yeah.
digital doubles or whatever. Very little of it feels real, and that's a huge bummer. I think we've gotten from Kick-Ass, for all of its downsides. I felt like for a lot of that movie, those people were physically doing the things
Yeah.
that they were doing in that
The
movie,
least believable part was like Batman being on fire, and that never looked good in Kick-Ass. But the action, people moving, that was usually good. Yeah.
And as time has gone, First Class had some really nice moments and some not as great moments from a CG perspective, and then like Kingsman, so on and so forth. And now we're at this point where I think it takes a lot of skill on the part
Mhm.
of the director to blend CG and real life action seamlessly. Obviously, one of the canonical examples of this is Mad Max Fury Road.
Sure.
You know, tons of CG in that movie, doesn't feel like it at all, right? Doesn't feel like it at all. This is a movie where literally every single, even scenes where the people are just hanging around outside a
Yeah.
house, like looks
Yeah.
like it's being shot on
The
a
cat
green
is
screen.
CG for a big chunk of the time because
Right.
they needed the cat to do things. It's like I can't even believe the cat in this movie. Come on.
Everything looks CG in this film,
But
and
it's okay if what you're
Mhm.
making is
Sure.
the
exact-
mask.
Exactly. That's
right.
right.
If
That's
you're
right.
if you're making, Who Framed Roger Rabbit or The Mask in the context of a spy movie,
Mhm.
Or
that could be
Poor Things. I would say like Poor Things has
or
like
that
tons
could
of
be fun.
yeah,
That
yeah.
could be a really fun movie. And honestly, I got to tell you guys, the last couple of scenes of this movie, when it just goes full out, I thought was clever and fun. I'm like, okay, that's the movie you wanted to be the whole time. Just be
Mhm.
that movie.
Mhm.
Why do you have to pretend to be this other thing for 2 hours?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so dumb.
I'm reminded, you guys remember If Looks Could Kill? The Richard Grieco movie?
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
think so.
That was it was an action comedy. I for some reason, I saw this a lot as a kid, but it's about an 18-year-old kid who becomes kind of
Yeah.
a super spy. It's like actually very similar
Mm.
to, I don't know, the various things we see happen in this movie, but that movie was goofy and dumb, didn't make any sense, and this kinda gets you in there too, and, Jeff, I wish I liked the end stuff more, but we'll talk about that in
Yeah,
spoilers.
let's talk about it. So let's get to spoilers, okay? So anyway, those are our overall thoughts on Argylle. Unfortunately, none of us liked it very much. I will also say one other thing.
Mhm.
The runtime of this film is unforgivable.
Insane.
Unforgivable.
There is
Completely.
no
An hour
reason
should be removed from this
there
movie.
is
An
no
hour.
reason this movie needs to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
We really just see at some point we see a famous actor just like playing on a computer for like a minute,
so
just
dumb.
hanging out.
I
didn't need
have
that.
another thing I need to say before spoilers.
Yeah. Well,
which is
let me elaborate on that point.
Oh,
Which is
okay,
like,
sure. Go
I
ahead,
have
sorry.
heard. I remember when I was watching, when I was growing up. Face Off, the John Woo movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. Also very goofy in parts.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing some reviews that say, "Oh, I think there's probably like one or two too many action scenes in Face Off." I remember thinking at the time, and still do today, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
This is some of the most incredible action that has ever been directed with real life people.
Mhm.
I don't, and I think that was Matthew Vaughn's motivation. He's like, oh, I have so many cool action movie ideas.
Yes.
I want to fit into this movie, and that's why the movie's so long. Is because
Mhm.
there's, I'm going to say conservatively, 1 hour's worth of action scenes in this movie. The problem for me is that very few of the action scenes actually look very good,
Mhm.
and often look like they use tons of digital effects that just pull me out of the immersion of the film. And this is very true in the final 30-40 minutes. Like, there's all these scenes that look like just unconvincing to me,
Mhm.
and that's why the movie felt like it took an eternity. If these were like very grounded action scenes where I believed these people were doing this stuff, then I would feel very differently about it.
It's sort of like I would compare it to maybe like Guy Ritchie's Man from U.N.C.L.E. too, which is another movie that I think really captures a good specific. Okay, we're gonna do like 60s era spy stuff, but also be grounded and not be like overly, I
Right.
don't know, overly like showy with things. But it still manages to have the big action scenes. I think another thing working against this movie is that I literally just saw the trailer for the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare a couple hours before I saw this movie. That is the new Guy Ritchie movie, also starring Henry Cavill. Just looks good. Looks like good spy stuff.
Are
I'm like,
Guy Ritchie and
yes.
Matthew Vaughn slowly becoming the same person?
Well, so it really felt like when I talked to Matthew Vaughn, and that was like 2009, it just seemed like I'm done. I'm done with Guy Ritchie. I'm not producing. I'm my own man doing my own things. And it seems like they had a big creative split. And it does kind of feel like, you know what's weird is that Guy Ritchie is kind of becoming the better filmmaker over time, and Matthew Vaughn is becoming worse, weirdly. Yeah.
All right, Jeff, go ahead. Your last point here.
As much as I was so frustrated and turned off by so much of this movie, I think the biggest travesty, the most egregious transgression that happens in this movie is the use of the final Beatles song.
I was gonna say, what you thought about
no
that.
fewer than 3 needle drops of the same song and an orchestral like reimagining of it. I mean, no, there's literally a scene near the beginning of the movie where she like opens up her MacBook, sits down, turns on her Mac. It's like, well, is this an Apple film? How could I possibly know? Clearly, Apple, funded the making of Now and Then, which is, I think, a gorgeous song, but it completely tramples over in the same way Matthew Vaughn trampled over the memory of Prince.
Yeah. You complained about that specific thing in Kingsman 2, Jeff.
I hated it so much. The drop of "Let's Go Crazy" in that, which he would never have allowed if he were alive. And there is literally a moment in this movie where she puts this thing on. She goes, "This was our song for years." It's like, it hasn't been around for years. It can't be your song. It was literally technology allowed that to happen 15 minutes ago. It made me so angry. So angry.
All right. Well, those are our overall thoughts on Argylle. Let's get to spoilers for Argylle starting right now. All right. I mean,
where to begin?
Okay, so Jeff, you I don't think you've seen the trailers for this movie, but there is something very hilarious has happened online this week where the entire marketing campaign of this movie hinges around this question of who is Agent Argylle? Like, who's the real Argylle? Like the trailer literally ends with who is the real Argylle? We're gonna show you right now, and then the trailer ends. Like, and it's like, who is the real Agent Argylle? And what's funny is essentially people discovered the Deadline.com article announcing this movie years ago. Gives away the whole solution right in the headline of the article. That's basically, which is
so here's the premise of the movie that we are supposed to believe pre-twists, which is a woman is writing spy novels so well that they are predicting the future. This is the idea of a twist is that the given circumstances are plausible. The given circumstances make more sense, are so obvious that we wouldn't even question them, because then the twist oh wow, what I took to be the obvious truth, the given circumstances, what I took to be a completely realistic understanding of what's been going on is now turned on its head by new info. Wow. Oh, it just made so much sense before, and now, woo, I'm recontextualizing. You cannot have a given set of the premise of the movie. The entire time I'm like, the fuck? We're supposed to swallow the fact that all of these spies are after her because if she finishes the book, it will tell them the future? That's the baseline pre-twist action, baby.
It's dumb from the start.
It is preposterous. It's preposterous. And no one questions that. She doesn't question that. It's like, it's the stupidest thing I could possibly. I honestly, at a certain point, was like, is this movie about a woman going through a psychotic break?
Right. All this is going to be like imagined, right? Like,
this is a complete, she's having a breakdown right now.
Yeah.
It makes no sense from the word go. And by the time the twist comes, you're like, well, thank God there's an actual reasonable explanation for this, because I couldn't possibly bear the fact that the movie is hinging on psychic writer lady.
I really wish the cat was more involved. I was actually kind of wondering, is the cat like psychically transferring spy knowledge to her? Like I buy that, Matthew Vaughn. Okay. Give me some what was the point of the cat even? The cat was such a essential part of the marketing. The cat book bag and everything.
That I understand. It's like it's this idea of the duality of Ellie Conway, right? And like part of her loves dogs, but then she became a different person because she got brainwashed by Bryan Cranston. So now she loves cats. And look, I will say, cool moment when Bryan Cranston shows up, right? Like in the
but what is he doing in this? This movie is beneath
which moment? Which moment?
I mean, literally when he shows up in the hotel.
In the hotel,
that was a cool. That was a cool.
The entire theater, behind me was like, what the fuck? Everybody was just like, what? Huh?
Oh no.
Just general expressions of disbelief and stupidity.
But that's why I was like, oh, there could be so many cooler explanations as to why that would be than what's in this movie. And it squanders these great actors doing these fun turns. So also, why would any of these people allow her to become famous?
Yeah.
Why would they allow? Yeah. The worst thing that could possibly happen is that anyone buys her books.
Yeah, maybe you should keep her on the down low, Make her a substitute teacher. I don't know.
Or like let her write, but don't let her then be published. You are a supremely powerful spy organization. Don't let the books get published.
If only we could control this.
It's the stupidest thing.
It is implausible that like 4 books have already been published. They have let her get to like,
superstar. She's like Stephen King, or she's a massive international superstar.
Clearly, the spy organizations, they started reading the first book and they're like, well, gonna let her cook.
Let's see where this goes. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah,
let's see where this is heading. Let's
absolutely.
Oh man,
preposterous. And then the notion that all of the things that she's been writing are accurate. So that first scene with the car driving on over the that all was supposedly happened. That happened.
They did a police story in Greece, basically. They did a Bad Boys 2 in Greece, essentially.
The other thing I want to say is that this movie completely cops out on saying anything of substance about gender identity because it hints at that. It brushes up against it. It flirts with this notion of why does she see herself as Henry Cavill?
Right.
But literally no. Why does her romantic relationship translate into a male-male relationship in the novel in her memory? That could be really interesting. Could be interesting territory to mine.
They don't even seem to realize they've broached the subject.
Exactly.
None of that. The whole early fight scene with Sam Rockwell switching between Henry Cavill never made sense because is she imagining Sam Rockwell doing that? Because later on,
it should be John Cena
as Argylle. So I don't. What are the rules of this?
There aren't
how is this working?
You're so right, Devindra. I had that same thought of it should be herself the whole time that she sees as Henry Cavill and him as John Cena. But no, it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
But guys, I mean, we are downplaying one of the great assets of this movie, aka one of the great crimes, which is that Academy Award-winning actress Ariana DeBose, shows up.
Sideline is fridged in this movie hard
for some reason, But she comes back at the end, so it's all
inexplicably.
When they kept saying the person who was online, did anyone for a second not assume exactly what it was? It was completely obvious.
I have a lot of questions about how Ariana DeBose ended up on that oil tanker or whatever the heck, but what? No one cares.
They end up on the oil tanker. Even that was unclear to me.
Yeah,
the whole placement of people in space, objects in space, I just don't understand anymore when so much of it feels manufactured. So that's a weird thing. I want to point out
she's the only one that has the secrets. We need her to publish them for all the world to read. It's the stupidest thing. It's the stupidest thing.
It's all so dumb.
Sorry, go ahead, Devindra.
Sam Rockwell jumping up from beneath the floorboards with dual pistols. That shot was in the trailer. And that specific shot made me think, oh no, this is a disaster. Because it looks so silly. It looks like it is a scene from Wanted, the Timur Bekmambetov
Yeah.
Wanted movie, and
Yeah.
not anything we'd expect in a spy movie like this. So anyway,
I
not a fan.
gotta say, I loved the smoke dance sequence. I loved the
enjoy,
ice
Jeff.
skating on the oil. By the time we got there, I was like, this could have been the whole movie. We could have just had this goofy, this could have been, I had a whole movie reference in my head. It doesn't matter. I liked it. You guys didn't like those scenes?
I hate it. That was the point where I was like fully checked out of this movie. I was struggling to stay awake. I'm like, oh, we're doing hearts with smoke now. The thing about this movie, Jeff, is I felt it was that dumb and that silly from the get-go. Like basically from the Sam Rockwell train sequence, that it was the same thing. It was the same like weird bloodless violence, which I also have a problem with in like all the Matthew Vaughn movies. Like I felt this in Kingsman too. Like remember, like that movie was all about heads exploding.
Yeah,
but they could never show red, so they exploded into like fireworks or some stupid.
Yeah.
And this movie's the same thing. Like he is tearing up a train car, shooting people, knifing people. Nothing. That car is spotless. There's no actual human pain there.
I agree with you, Devindra. That said, that was my favorite action scene in the movie
because it
looked like it was
the only one that looks good.
Physically doing things.
It's a far cry from that to ice skating on knives.
Right.
Like, that was still a moment where I bought that we were in a grounded spy movie. Yes, there was some comedic takes of him like trying to talk to her and then getting knocked out of the doorway. But I thought that was kind of fun stuff. And
agreed.
Like that could totally take place in a James Bond movie.
Yes, absolutely.
So I felt I was being communicated that we're still in a movie very different from her pulp novel reality. And the fact that it just keeps creeping. And by the time we're like, falling backwards onto things and having the cat fly out, I'm like, what the fuck is this movie doing?
Yeah. We really needed that CG shot of the cat going up. Yep.
I think my problem with the smoke fight scene is it's very obvious they didn't actually use smoke. And I know...
Yes, it looks terrible.
I'm sure it would have been difficult to actually use smoke.
Impossible.
And be able to do multiple takes and all that stuff.
Maybe God is telling you don't do this.
But
it's physically impossible.
The eye can tell the difference. And it's like... The human eye can tell the difference, and it's just like it just doesn't look good. And that's immediately followed by the ice skating oil scene, which like I'm not even sure makes any sense. That you could do that.
I thought of the reference that was in my head. By that point in the movie, I was like, oh, we're in Shaolin soccer.
Sure.
We're in. That's what this movie wanted to be from the start. Is not tethered to any sense of reality.
Right.
It's a live action cartoon. A live action Looney Tunes. And I would be down for that. Like, I think Vaughn could pull that off. I mean, Kingsman flirts with that too. And I like, do it, make it that, but don't couch it in, there's two realities and it's all so dumb. Just makes Austin Powers, make a fun, goofy, comedic spy movie. I'm into that.
I see your point, Jeff. It felt like it creeped in really quickly is the thing. Like it didn't feel like, okay, maybe we're supposed to have that separation early on, but once the train sequence happens, they escape through that by him blowing out with the parachute. And like, it just all looked very silly. My thing about the smoke is just like, this is all for show. This is all, okay, they're in love, but they're not. It's just waves and waves of guys running off to these people who are just like randomly pointing their guns all over the place and just getting mowed down. So it felt like a weird video game cutscene because it doesn't mean anything. The action doesn't mean anything other than to make the smoke make a heart because they're in love.
I agree. I don't disagree with any of that. I just felt like by the end, it's like, don't pretend to not be this. Just be this. Just be this. Maybe this is also bad, but at least just don't pretend you're not this.
Say what you will.
He wants to make more of this. Yeah.
Say what you will about the fake Argylle book within the story, but at least it's an ethos. Like
exactly.
Well, at least it was like, hey, you're going for something specific there. Matthew Vaughn wants to make more of these movies. And did you guys see the mid-credit sequence?
No, I got out of there as fast as I
literally
could. It came in like within 30 seconds.
So I know there's a mid-credit sequence. We could talk about what happens in it. I rarely do this, but I was so ready to leave the film that
you just bolted.
Like when not even like right when they're driving away on the boat.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh, I've
got
done
up.
this.
I got up out of my chair and like positioned myself at the exit so I could just flee the second I saw
You
the
were
credits.
posed
So
like
you
the
didn't
Flash,
see-
like the Flash's posed to start running. You were just like ready,
Yeah,
freezing, waiting for
and
the money to go.
I stood like
Yep.
in the little hallway, like vestibule, like right leading into the
Yes.
hallway for
Get me out of here.
So that the second the first credit, I could just be like, I don't want this movie to take any more of my time than is absolutely necessary.
But you saw the Henry Cavill reveal.
I did see Henry
at the very-
Cavill.
yeah.
That was fun.
But
As-
what are we supposed to make of that?
I have no
Even-
goddamn idea.
Oh, you actually remembered Henry Cavill's here?
Like there is a guy whose physical appearance is what you based your
Mhm.
weird pseudo memory on.
Yeah,
What
although
does
he
that
doesn't,
mean?
although he doesn't look anything like Henry Cavill in the story because his hair is different. You know,
This
And he
is
has-
a
he has
real
different
Henry
acts.
Cavill abuse in this movie.
he has a different accent as well. Anyway,
It's just
Okay,
so there is a mid-credit sequence where we get a title card 20 years earlier. We see somebody enter a bar, the King's Man, and it's just all like, oh, Matthew
it's
Vaughn, what are you
tying
doing?
it into the same universe?
We don't know.
It's the Matthew Vaughniverse, baby.
It's the Matthew Vaughniverse, and he keeps being cheeky and is like, "Oh yeah, I have ideas." There's a whole thing. Like, guys, the movie says it's based on a book, and we don't even know is Matthew Vaughn or is the scriptwriter of this movie actually the person who made the quote unquote book? Like, it's all like a weird marketing thing, like just to say this movie was based on the book. But Matthew Vaughn's just like, hey, yeah, if we get the green light, we want to make more of these movies. We want to make one like based on the actual book that was written about, plus also another meta movie following these characters. And yeah, clearly Matthew Vaughn has just lost the plot. Like, that's my thing. Guy Ritchie's out here going back to basics, giving us a kick-ass group of dudes and a group of people just like going on a mission. You know, Matthew Vaughn wants to make more cartoons.
All right,
I don't know, man.
So the post-credit sequence, there's a guy that shows up at the Kingsman. He introduces himself as Aubrey Argylle, who is like the character from the books that's played by Henry Cavill in the movie. And then you see the text, Argylle Book 1, the movie coming soon, right, is what happens on screen. So the thing that's extremely odd.
But that doesn't make any sense because we were just
that's
told
the
that
entire movie.
that
This
her
doesn't make
books
any sense.
were based on her memories as Argylle. Which, by the way, as a person who loves puns, even I hated that.
But Jeff, what if
I was going to say, Jeff, that must be Jeff's favorite part of the movie is when she's revealed as Kyle.
I will say, after suffering through this thing, an entire movie that is just the book, just the like silly stuff from the book, I would actually be more into that than more the like weird meta stuff that they're trying to build off of that.
I agree with that, but I don't understand how is it still just memories of Bryce Dallas Howard?
Well, those things happened, Jeff. Now it's the real story of the memories that were in that character who was brainwashed and was also a super spy.
But we're going to see it not as her. We're going to see it as this dude and have no mention of why we're seeing it as a dude. It's weird. Weird.
So, this may have already been resolved. And if so, like we'll get some emails about this, but at this point, I don't know that the authorship of the Argylle book has been fully explained yet, right?
We don't know what's going on there.
You mean?
In real life, in Meat Space, right? In real life, there is an actual book named Argylle that's written by a woman named Ellie Conway.
Yes.
That does not have metafictional elements in it, as far as I could tell, which is, like this movie does.
And it was only was it put out as part of the marketing of this film, or is it?
Basically,
did it exist?
No.
Came
It's
at the same time.
The movie is theoretically based off of the book. So, but the thing is,
it's not like a book that's been around for 10 years.
Correct.
No.
Yes, and not only that, Jeff, it's way more sketchy than that. The author of the book, Ellie Conway, is a extreme introvert. There's no photographs of this person that exist online. A lot of people have
dumb.
A lot of people have speculated that it's like Taylor Swift, but it could also be like,
of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Okay.
She's ghostwriting for Biden.
You you joke about that, but there's actually like way more reasons to believe it's Taylor Swift than you might think. Like,
I think there's zero reasons.
Yeah, I know. There's more than zero, in my opinion.
It's the biggest marketing coup of this movie that people are even speculating that it could be Taylor Swift. So really giving them a lot of credit.
This movie does not deserve any of this. It didn't deserve the people who are in it.
Okay, according to Business Insider, Conway's debut novel caught the eye of Vaughn before it was even published. Vaughn was intrigued after receiving a manuscript of Conway's unpublished spy novel.
Bullshit.
He and screenwriter Jason Fuchs decided to make a fictional version of Conway the main character of the film.
Bullshit.
So the question is, who is Ellie Conway in real life?
The real Ellie
Who
Conway?
is
Got
the
this
real-
thing, we just decided to write adaptation instead of actually adapting the book, because that's what a normal
Well, you know what's
Matthew
funny is that
Vaughn would do.
Ava DuVernay just did the same thing with Origins.
That's
It's kind
true.
of wild. We have two movies kind of doing this too.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Extremely similar subject matter too. No,
Indeed,
I'm just joking,
indeed.
not at all.
No.
But Jeff, I like the basically I was very I went down the rabbit hole in this, but like I was very intrigued because the description of Ellie Conway reads: Ellie Conway is the author of the debut thriller Argylle, the inspiration for the upcoming film of the same name. She lives somewhere in the United States. That is
Sure.
And is currently dating Travis Kelce.
That is the bio on the Penguin Random House website. Also, on the UK version, it says Ellie Conway was born and raised in upstate New York. She wrote her first novel about Agent Argylle while working as a waitress in a late night diner. So
yeah, we've heard that story
which is
before.
the fake story of this movie.
So anyway, basically, I'm saying all this because literally by the time this episode comes out, there may be more shoes to drop about like who Ellie Conway is. We don't know right now.
What's
None of it
funny
will
is
be
that
interesting.
Our minds are
I guarantee you.
untainted by the truth of who the
Am I
real
able
Ellie
to
Conway
purchase
is.
the book called
You
Argylle
can.
right now?
I believe you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the question is, who is Ellie Conway is far more interesting than the question is, who is the real Agent Argylle?
Yes.
That's the funniest thing overall.
Absolutely.
The whole metafictional build structure that they built around this. Anyway, Matthew Vaughn says like he has like a universe in his head with Kingsman on the right, Argylle on the left, and something in the middle. So he's threatening us at this point with like a cinematic
Clowns
universe.
to the left of me.
Yep.
Jokers to the right.
I think the book came out quite recently, like within
Sure,
the
of
last
course it did.
couple weeks.
I bet it's spectacularly well written too. I bet
Well, okay,
the prose is so
Jeff, no need for Ellie Conway to be catching strays from you right now, Jeff. Okay, you have no idea who that
I'm
is.
sure this wasn't just shot off as a way to be in synchronicity with the release of the movie. I'm sure there's nothing in this. I'm sure this was slaved over for many years, this novel.
You're gonna feel real bad once it turns out all this stuff about Ellie Conway is true, Jeff.
That's true.
I will retract. I've retracted so many things in this episode already. I'm happy to retract.
I will say this movie is also giving me real developed by AI vibes. So whenever we have like weird authorship issues, like there was just an award recently where an author just revealed like part of her book was written by AI, and then now the awards are like, I don't know what to do about this.
Ellie Conway is definitely human. She lives in America.
She
and
is
not a computer.
waitress. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, at the end of the day, despite literally everything we just said,
give me the next Guy Ritchie movie, guys. That's what I want.
It's impressive that Matthew Vaughn made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.